Well, you look serious, Don. Big frown on your face.
Gosh, is that obvious, is it?
It's the wrinkles here.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, I was trying to change that thing. I was doing one of those administrative frustration things, possibly. I was trying to sign up for Discord. I didn't even know what it is. It's for a retreat of mind. And I realized I signed up for it before and never used it. And I can either get into my previous one properly nor use a new one because it says my email address is being used already. So I was trying to figure that one out for the last 10 minutes. Okay. Possibly I was continuing to frown after. And then I was like, no, it's 12 o'clock now. I should be over in Vince's. Anyway.
Yeah. So you find that thing that says forgot password.
Yeah, I did that. And then it didn't send me an email. So that was kind of weird because it said this email address is already being used. But then when I did the forgot password thing, it wouldn't send me an email. And I went into the spam folder. I found all kinds of stuff in there I didn't realize was in the spam folder, but not their one. So I don't know where they were coming from. So it's a weird situation. They won't send me a forgot password email, but they won't let me set up a new account because my email is already being used. I don't know. It's weird. I'll pretty figure it out, but
yeah. Oh well.
It's weird. It'll
a bit tricky, that stuff. Yeah. That's how you end up with more than one email address. You just go and get another email address.
That's an idea. I never thought of doing. Yeah, exactly. I never thought of doing that until recently because yeah, my sister was telling me recently that she has one email address for like all the random crap that you get subscriptions from and one for stuff she wants. Because yeah, there's the amount of stuff. I went in a couple of months ago to my email thinking there's almost nothing in here that I want to see. Why am I getting all these emails? And I thought there must be just so many subscriptions. I thought I'll just do a few. I'll just unsubscribe from a few. And about an hour later, I had unsubscribed from 65 email things that have been coming in. It's like, I can't believe I had said yes to it, all those things.
Yeah. And then in the end, you'll only be successful unsubscribing from 40 of them, and there'll be 20 that will ignore that and keep on sending you stuff.
Some of them do, yeah. But I've got more now in between. Some things seem interesting for a while. I think I'll just see what they have to say for a while, and they accumulate very quickly.
Yeah, I had the same. I had lots and lots of things, and I started to unsubscribe. I've got it down a bit, but there's still more to go. Because I think you join up with one thing and they send your email address to a whole lot of other people, so you end up subscribing to 10 things when you've only signed up for one.
Yeah, sometimes there's additional. I don't know where they even came from. Yeah, I don't know where they came from. I used to notice like that. I'd look at my sent items and I'd feel cheerful, and I'd look at my inbox and I'd feel sad, and I go, why is that? And I go, because I send things to people I like, and I get stuff from all kinds of random people I don't want stuff from.
Yeah. Well, here we are again.
I'm just silently stuffing my face here and listening to everyone.
Yeah, it seems to be mealtime over that side of the world. It's 9 p.m. here, and it's breakfast time for you guys, eh?
It's midday now, yeah.
Here, but was late morning, so.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'll finish my breakfast and I join you.
Yeah, you can. Well, we don't mind watching you eat.
It's this year's the first time. Guess there's all this new Zoom stuff that I haven't been doing for very long. Maybe like most people, but I guess this year is the first time I realized that the time change between summertime, daylight savings time, and the other one goes in the opposite direction on the southern hemisphere. And I didn't occur to me ever before because it was something I didn't have to think about. And so instead of like with the US, it goes off by an hour for 2 or 3 weeks and it comes back again to the same gap. If it was 5 hours, it goes to 4 and then goes back to 5. So whereas for you, it went from 11 hours to 10 hours to 9 hours. I was like, no, it's totally gone. It didn't go from 11 to 10 to 11 back to where it was before. It went to, you already know that, but it's something new to me for this year.
Yeah, it compounds, so we end up with 2 hours the difference to what it was before. Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, the one in the morning, the Feta group in the morning, it used to be at 7:30. Now it's at 5:30 a.m.
Oh my God. And you get, yeah. And I know you accommodate, I know that you get up early and stay up late just to accommodate the rest of us.
Oh yeah, but I have a sleep in the day if I need it. Yeah.
Okay.
I can do that. Yeah. Yeah. And even still, it's, I mean, I have one at, for everybody, I have one at 6 a.m., one at 3 p.m. and one at 9 p.m. And there's still parts of the world that can't fit into that. So it's a bit hard. Yeah. Yeah. So who's had something interesting happen since we last spoke?
I can tell you what just to get something said, I suppose. I can tell you what I said to Todd and Pernilla yesterday. Who was Anna? It was Anna there as well. I don't know, could have heard me, but I had, what was it, yesterday morning? I had 1 hour. I was trying to do watching that for the next thought, which I've been trying to do for about 1.5 years. And I had 1 hour yesterday morning of watching for the next thought and having enough space to see the next thought arise kind of quite quickly, but watch the next thought and watch the next, and realize a few times that they were coming out of kind of almost out of nowhere randomly, or pretending they were very important, and they were all, logical and consequential and so on, and just coming out of all directions. Watching that, but it took quite a lot of effort. But I was like, oh, I'm onto something now. It seems like the way they describe what you're supposed to do is watch for the next thought. And but I came back to it at lunchtime, and I got into a spin as usual of some thought of, I'm doing this wrong, and I get confused, and the wrongness turns into a feeling, and I can't see the thoughts around that anymore, and I get confused, and I got stuck in that again. So yeah, so they helped me a bit with it. I'll have to go back through it again, but it's a strange, I don't know why I'm even mentioning it.
Yeah,
it was good that I had that space yesterday for a bit, and then I got back to, there's a one feeling of me being wrong, the one who's failing at self-inquiry. It feels so strong, I can't undo the label from that. And then there's also a sort of a separate, semi-separate thing of a blanking thing. It makes me kind of unconscious in that space too. So that seemingly simple practice of watching for the next thought has eluded me really for a long time. And I got 1 hour of being able to do it sort of okay yesterday morning before the confusion came back. So yeah, that's all I can. Yeah.
So what that brings up for me is that there's, you can't have a wrong thing. There's nothing wrong. So when you decide there's something wrong, that's simply a thought saying, I'm here. There's something under me. There's something propelling me out. So if you get a thought that you think is wrong, of course, that's just another thought.
Yeah.
Right? So what I'm thinking is that instead of worrying about doing it right, worrying about watching for the next thought, although that's a good thing to do, because you've started doing it, is look for the quality of the thought. So when a thought turns up, decide whether you're going to bat it this way or that way. And that way is all the shit, rubbish thoughts. And this way potential, just potential useful thoughts.
Mm.
Right? So the ones that are rubbish, you can just basically ignore. You know, you just bat them away and ignore them. The ones that have potential, and this is the trick, you don't want to get involved in them. What you want to do is look at what they're trying to tell you by doing whatever it is they're doing. So you're not interested in the content of any thought, right? But the ones that are potentially useful and that would seem to be indicated by the content of it, but you're not going to get involved in the content of it. What you're going to do is ask what they're trying to tell you.
Mm.
Right? And then you listen to your intuition for whether that's worth listening to what they're trying to tell you. So that's a case of trusting. Now that intuition will seem to appear as a thought in the beginning, but there will be a feeling attached to it, and that's the intuition, not the thought, but the feeling attached to the thought is what the intuition is. So that intuition will tell you, oh, this has potential, this thought, and then you'll ask yourself, what's it trying to tell me? And the content, what it's about, will be nothing to do with what it's trying to tell you. That's always a furphy. That's always trying to take you away from something.
Mm.
That's pretty complicated story, isn't it?
Maybe. I mean, I feel like the hour yesterday morning that I'm referring to, I could kind of do that, even though it took a bit of effort. And I could see various things that seemed cheerful and negative and judgmental, and other things and distracting and whatnot. And I could stay and notice those directions
Yes.
and not go up with them too much and just let them and notice my reaction to them and stay keeping on noticing the next one and going, okay, that's interesting. Some of those seem really interesting and really serious, really important, really unimportant. And I just stay here and keep noticing those things happening. And it seems like the right thing. I don't know what I'm achieving yet, but feels like I'm doing the thing I'm supposed to do.
You were absolutely. You were looking at what the flavor of the thought was. Yes.
Yeah. And sort of seeing how, I don't know, semi-random they are or how unimportant they are or something, but just watching. Yeah. And I felt, okay, it's not easy, but I feel I'm doing something useful. It sounds like the kind of thing I've heard described on the various YouTube videos and by people. And, but then, yeah, so when I tried it the second time, then it went back to the previous experience of, it's like, I don't know what the best way is, and I feel like just always complaining, right? But that's anyway what I do. But like, it's like one thought, like it's like rings a bell, and the bell just chimes continuously for the whole day long. So the wrong thought gets chimed, and it just chimes, and it's just going the whole. And it's not I have no choice to say, oh, is that thought true or not true? I just feel wrong into my core, and I'm just beside myself with frustration, and it continues for hours. And I can't escape from that feeling that this is true. And all the other thoughts around that are just incidental. I'm doing the best I can with them, but everything I'm doing with them is now by definition wrong because I feel that so strongly. And that's kind of back to my normal experience. I'm like, oh gosh, can I just go back to the one from this morning? It wasn't easy, but at least I felt I was doing something. So I'm not sure what to do. And I don't know, Pernilla was saying, go into the feelings, the sensation of it. So I've been trying to do that for a while. So I keep trying to do that, but it's, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if that resonates. Does that, I do wonder sometimes if what I'm saying has, like, is this something that you've experienced? Like the initial one, the hour I described is something that you've experienced. It's the second one of going into a spin of like, I'm a complete fucking failure for 12 hours straight and not being able to escape from that. I don't hear people describing that as strongly as I do sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, what Pernilla's advising you to do is to get into the feeling, which is usually a way out of your head. It's a way of not being sucked into your thoughts by getting into the feelings.
Yeah.
But it seems like that doesn't work for you very well.
It's hard to stay. Yeah, I try to get into the feeling sensations. I do. I suppose on my own, I tend towards stories a little bit, but I try the sensations on their own as much as I can. But
So
they do stay around for a really long time. So I feel I must be telling a story kind of surreptitiously.
Yep. So when I tell you that you can't have a wrong thought, you can't be doing anything that you shouldn't be doing. How do you react to that? You don't believe
Sounds
it.
like complete nonsense. Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
So why would I say that? Why would I say that you can't have a wrong thought? What do you imagine is behind it? See,
I
I
don't
know
know.
you believe it, but at the same time, you don't disbelieve it, do you?
Okay. It's, first of all, I'd say it's some kind of non-duality philosophy thing that's true for the whole universe on average, but it's not true, necessarily true for everybody. And
Okay.
if, yeah.
That's a pretty weak way of dismissing it.
I
'Cause I don't buy that non-duality shit. I really don't get into that, But
don't know.
it's your way of batting it away.
Maybe. Maybe yeah, maybe. Yeah, because the belief that I'm wrong is very strong. So it's hard. It doesn't have any interest in evidence. It just goes on and on. But just the feeling I have of being on a downward trajectory or being on a plateau for decades, just is quite strong, the frustration feeling. So, it doesn't make me feel super cheerful. So, I don't know. I feel like I heard, like, since I started with Buddhism like 35 years ago or something, people are always saying cheerful things about how everything was progressing in a positive direction. And I found other people were often progressing in a positive direction with their meditation practice and other things, and I was staying
Not you. Yeah.
certainly stuck. And I'd come back after, I'm just complaining now, but I'd come back after 10 or 15 years and I'd do an introductory meditation course and I'd complain. And somebody who'd been there for 2 weeks would start giving me advice.
Yeah.
And because they were making progress after their second week, and I was there for 15 years and still not.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's kind of the reason I'm a bit,
Yeah. Okay. So one thing I want to say is get rid of that I'm complaining shit. I don't care. I don't see it as complaining. It's whatever you come up with. See, I don't see anything you can come up with as anything you shouldn't come up with. It's all grist for the mill for me.
Right? Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
No, don't need to thank me. It's just the way it is. But what I say is you can't do anything wrong. Isn't a philosophy, right? What I would hope is that you can ingest something that will change your experience. And the experience I want to change is your resistance, you're running away from. Okay, so what this whole thing, everything that you've got going is an avoidance behavior. It's a way of keeping away from something that scares the shit out of you. Mm-hmm. And you may or may not even get close enough to that scared the shit stuff to recognize that it's there. But you're so good at running away from it that you're successful at keeping away from it. Now I'm not even saying that you've got to go there. What I'm saying is you've got to recognize that there's something there. You don't have to know what it is. But I recognize, I believe, no, I've got a fucking story. That's all I've got. A story that you're scared shit of something. And that's what keeps you away from it.
Yeah.
I want to say something.
Go on, I can see you nodding. You have a good idea. Tell me.
But normally what I, did and still do when something like this comes up, oh, I made a mistake, or, something wrong with me, or I'm not enough, anything of them. I just, just dive into a body and just say something wrong with me. And you just really feel, well, that is in the body. Just really feel what is coming up in the body and just feel into, and say it again, something is wrong with me. And just feel into our body again. And just notice where that sensation is. And also what you can try, because that what happens, this story keeps coming up and that keeps you away from feeling it. So when you do this, you actually do what that is trying to avoid you to do. You can also have a dialogue with that sensation. When you connect with that sensation, you can ask, what happens when I'm wrong, and see what comes up. You know, like it might be something they don't love me or they hate me. Anything, any different kind of answers can come up. But that's just like it's coming up from that sensation thing. And just, you know, like what happens when they don't love you, or you just can sit there and soothe that child. That's what I normally do. That's what really helps.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So I'll see if I can, yeah, because one of the things you said helped a bit. Because I feel like I do sit here with the intention of facing that stuff for years, and yet I
It's
presumably
really,
just
you know, like you
whatever.
say it and you really feel where that is like a response in the body. Just, you know, like I'm stupid. Like even now when I'm saying that, just like instantly here, just like
Mm.
so that belief is still there operating. And any time, you know, like something happens in life, what makes me feel like I made a mistake or feel, you know, like I'm feeling stupid, that sensation will be here and story just will go like this.
Mm.
That's just my experience sharing here.
Thank you.
Yeah. If David was here, David Bonney, he would say that we need to be gentle with ourselves. We don't want to overload and go too far, because that just gets us freaked out and running off again. And so what we want to do is just touch the edge of it. Now, the thing is that your mind is going to say, you've got to know about it. Well, you don't. You don't have to know about it. All you have to do is know that there's something there. Now, last time Anna was at a group, she did something where she was starting to describe a situation with you, and she's talking about the generic you. You are this, you are that, you are that. And I suggested to her that she switch it around and say I instead. And what happened? Boom, something triggered and out poured all this emotion. Now, she may or may not have, and Anna will tell you about it if she feels inclined, but she may or may not have associated it with something specific. But regardless, even if she didn't, out came this emotion, right? This outpouring of stuff that was a release, a relief, an emptying of stuff she was hanging on to before that. Right? And if that didn't identify with anything in particular, she's at least removed one layer of protection from it. And that means that it's more accessible than it used to be. Or maybe she completely emptied it out. Who knows, you know? We'll let her tell you if she wants to.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I was here for that last week. That was really interesting.
Yeah,
Because I saw something real happening there. Yeah.
Yeah.
it was very big one, and it was just like pure body empty in itself. It was like no mind, but there's still something is echoing there, you know, like there's still something is there, but it seems like, as you said, Vince, you know, that layer has cleared up and there is just even like you go even deeper and deeper now. So
Yeah.
what is coming up like recently about, you know, the same issue, because it still keep coming up, not as loud as it was before, you know, that meeting thing. And but you know, what is it? It's like yesterday morning, it came up, you know, like a reactivity. Like it just feels like you're attached to a low voltage battery and like electricity is just running through the body and like an itch under skin and you just can't get there to itch, and just like this urge, this like, you know, just do something, at least think about it. And you just, you know, you just sit there in the gap and just observe. And there was also like contraction in the tummy area and like a fist, like clenched fist and the very lower tummy and like pulling guts down, that sensation. So you know, like once that urge and that itch settled, I asked that sensation, you know, like what are you afraid of? And it came up with something, you know, like I will not be able to move away from where I am. And, you know, I said, like, and what happens when you're not able to move away from where you are? And then there was this picture, you know, like, if like freeze response, you just like completely frozen. And then like a big monster comes and swallows you. So yeah, things like this and this, like, then I was diving deeper into the sensations this morning again. And just, you know, like this, like, it started to feel like a numbness and coldness around the face. And still that clenching, you know, like a face sensation in the lower tummy. And so, you know, like I'm just going into that some sensations, and it feels like you that big fog, like you walk into that fog, and it becomes like thicker and thicker and thicker, and you can't see, you can't know anything, and you can't move because it's become thicker and thicker, and you just freeze. You just completely, body just freezes, and it just feels like blood is not moving anymore, and that face is completely terrified, and it just like swallows you, and you just disappear. You're just gone. That's what came up this morning. But you know, like,
so that's brilliant. Let me jump in here. So Don, do you get that? No specific details about any specific happening. It was symbolic. Everything was symbolic, but there was definitely movement there. You get that?
mm-hmm.
She's not yet ready to see what is the actual experience behind it.
Mm-hmm. It is like maturing. It's just like a pimple, you know, it's just like maturing, getting ready.
Okay, doke. So yeah, no, I did hear that. Thank you. And yeah, that aspect that you mentioned, Vince. But my question then, my first question was kind of how do you start that? So I can sit here and go, okay, I can feel that I have sensations. I have arms and legs, and there's sensations here, and I can sink into and it just feels bland, and there's nothing intense happening. And I go, what do I do? How do I go down into the whatever?
Right. You don't, Don. There's nothing you can do that's going to give you access to that. You can't do it. You've got to give up trying to do it, right? Because the more you try, the more you keep away from it. So it's a paradox, isn't it? So what you need to do is kind of get really soft about whatever's happening for you. Really be really super gentle, super you got to give yourself a hug.
It's like daddy with baby.
Yeah,
it's like you're handling a baby, you know, like you can't be, baby, you do this, baby, you need to say this or something. It's just like handling very, very fragile, gentle baby, you know, like you just embrace them, just very, very gently, as you say, Vince. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Let your feminine side out.
Hey.
Go on in, go.
Thanks.
Yeah, because I had a little bit of a breakthrough yesterday, and I do identify with Don's dilemmas sometimes. And what I'm starting to realise is I always think I'm not very emotional. I don't cry much anymore. I used to do it a lot. The body's taught itself not to somehow. And so getting into that, which what you're seem to be describing, Don, is very difficult for me. People have said, oh, do body work. I've not known how to do that. But I've got to say, I don't know if you're in Sid's group or anyone's group with IFS, the Internal Family Systems. It is amazing for me, getting to know these different parts of myself and allowing them in. And so on yesterday, I had this it's not even a feeling, this way that I don't like. It's like a disconnected, almost disassociation, and something about me just feels wrong, like I'm bad, I'm wrong, I can't do anything, you know. It's just so hopeless. And I wanted to go to the park. It's a beautiful sunny day, but all I can do when I'm like that is sit in the house, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I can't look at thoughts. I can't go into the body. I'm just kind of lost. And what's been really helping me, you said, how do I access that? How do I get into it, Don? And I never thought something this simple would be helping me, but it is starting a dialogue with that part of me. And even though I didn't believe it when I first started talking to it, something seems to be moving, and I think it sounds to me like you're looking for that movement, Don, from this thing that I seem to get into sometimes, and he'll tell me I've had it all my life, that I'm not moving, I'm not progressing. And so I start the dialogue. I'll just say, what's the matter, darling? And speak to that part of me there's something going on, but I don't know what. And so it's just, you're okay, it's okay to be like that. We can just sit here, we don't have to go out, maybe you're scared, I don't know, do you want to tell me anything? And even just that willingness to sit with that part and open up a dialogue. The dialogue seems to be, and it's very slow for me, but eventually just a few tears dropped down my face. And that was a real breakthrough for me, because I could have spent a day or days like that, because it's so kind of cut off and disassociated. And I felt it moving. I kind of wanted an avalanche of tears. Some part of me wants a dramatic opening, but it was just one or two tears to release that feeling of hopelessness, trappedness.
And the big thing out of that, what Anna's saying that I get, is that she's speaking to it very gently. What's the matter, darling? She said, that very gentle, caring.
Yeah.
And also, Don, taking into account, there's another part of me, the adult, that's scared of that part. I put them as adult, child, right? The adult wants to be adult. It wants to keep the armor on. It wants to press ahead. It wants to go out in the sunshine. It wants to do. The child wants to hide in a corner under the bedclothes. So I'm trying to get these two negotiating. Okay, darling, we'll sit for a while, see what you want. Maybe we can have a treat, do you want something to eat? And these two parts seem to be talking now. I don't know if that would help, but I just know it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. You're very good. I didn't elaborate. I guess yesterday I did a little bit of that with myself, because I have a person I do focusing with once a week, and she's great. So we're making a bit of progress with that, I think. Just impatient. I did IFS for 4 flipping years, Anne, and I still didn't heal anything. So it's a bit of a pain in the arse. So I gotta know the approach. I just anyway. But anyway, thank you. But but I did do that, and I'm really, if it helps you, I'm really glad. I don't know what it was. That piece doesn't matter. But I was doing a bit of that yesterday, and I did actually, felt the sensations in my body as best I could, and I said hello to it, I guess, like focusing way, saying hello to it.
And you've done so many different things over so many years. You could write a textbook that incorporated every single one of them, I'm sure, right? So it's not technique that you need, right? It's attitude that I suspect that you need to focus on, rather than technique.
Yeah.
You've tried all the techniques. You've done every one of them. There's nothing you haven't done. You've got more experience than any of us put together with all of them.
I don't know what the attitude is. I went and did this thing. I'll just kind of finish that for a second. I work with this. I've noticed this sensation. I said hello to it yesterday. I expected to hear nothing, because you often hear nothing initially when you say hello to a sensation, I find. And it just almost immediately talked back to me. And it was a story, I guess, but it sounded to be coming spontaneously from the feeling of wrongness, as it were. And it was just telling me about my experience from when I was 12, for about 10 or 12 years of being in secondary school, and just being told I was wrong by everybody because I was lazy and good for nothing. I didn't study hard enough, and I was everyone knew I was smart and I was doing badly, and I was just told it from every direction for 10 or 12 years, and I was resisting it. So this part was there going, ugh, and just filled up with this being told he was wrong from the outside. So so I noticed that, but that's the attitude or something. When you say that, no, did you say the word attitude? The piece I feel I miss sometimes is, and that's the reason, the thing that even the IFS people said to me is, I don't believe I can do this. This is one of the fundamental things is I can work with an inner child part, and I'm going, mate, I can't help you. I don't know what to do. I don't feel confident. I don't feel competent. I'll just be here. I can listen, but I don't know if I can help you. I just don't feel, if there's a part of me here that can help whatever inner child parts I come across. Often feels like the missing piece for me, that I don't know how to.
To leave him alone, right?
Your mic's on, girl.
I don't know how to. I don't know. And maybe I don't know if that's an attitude thing or not. I just sometimes, and I feel embarrassed to say it but it just comes up sometimes. And I go, I don't know what to do here. There's supposed to be an adult in the room, is there? Who's supposed to help here?
No,
I don't know how to.
That's a
Don't
common one.
feel
that
like
one.
when you talk to this child part, like
Yeah.
really imagine there is a wee kid sitting there beside you. I don't know, like your nephew, your son, your grandchild, like even if just any kid. You can also put, like a younger you picture in front of you, so like that visualization works better. And or I know I heard it works for men. Sometimes they don't they can't open up for this child part, but they can open up when they imagine like wee puppy, like wee doggy. Yeah, for some reason for men that works better. I heard about this thing as well. Like women, they really, open up for children, but for men, it's easier to talk, like that's nice, soft kind, like voice to talk to pups, wee doggies. So, you can try that, see what works. But like really imagine like your child or, like your nephew, like anyone you really, really care about sitting there next to you and, like talking to you, I'm feeling this and this, like they say I'm wrong, like, and it really upsets me. Like, what would you do? Just give a cuddle, like, or how can I help you, darling? Things like this.
Yeah.
Sounds to me, Don, like you're just letting that kind of father figure have the reins all the time. And so yesterday, when you let a little bit of the little boy, who you said very quickly started talking to you, is there in a cage wanting to come out and talk to you, and then this adult father shutting it down. It's like, yeah, okay, well, I've done that, and yeah, that was okay, but very dismissive, very, let's get on with it now. I've tried that little practice and this little practice, and I'm not criticizing because I've done that all my life. And when I talk, I've done as much as you. And when I talk about speaking to this inner child, there are times in my life where it wouldn't even come close. But I had to notice first the strict adult in me. I had to go with that part first, and that part was getting dominance. Yeah, that was the bit that was scared. Maybe talk to that. That's the bit that doesn't want to let go. It's protecting you. It's protecting me, and the last thing it wants to do is let go. And I can talk to that too. It's okay. It's okay to let the softness in. We can just do it a bit. So there's two parts to talk to. If you can't go straight to the hugging, cuddly little doggy bear child, deal with the adult. I know you're angry. I know you're angry. I know you think you can't do this. I know you're terrified. You're protecting me. Yeah, but we can work together. We can work together now, and let's look at this. Just an idea, but I just remembered that came because I only started this about a week ago. That came first. The strict. I think the strict one sometimes more terrified than the little one.
Yeah.
Because it's trying to hold me together. It's the control. It's the, I've got this far in my life and I know what I'm doing. And I'm not going to let go. You can't do this because I'm doing it. It says, you can't do it. You're not safe enough to do this. So I'll do it for you. So it's that that's telling you can't do it. You can't win.
Have you watched film Split?
And probably. Which one
There
is it
is
again?
that, you know, like he had them like multiply personalities, and there
Oh,
was
yeah,
this
yeah.
Patricia. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you see that part what Anne is talking about, that supervisor. I call her, like, you know, like she's here as well. I call her Patricia.
Yeah.
She's like supervisor. This is very, very judgy. She's very judgy and just, you know, like everything is mess. That needs to be sorted. That needs to be sorted. She's like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's the attitude I was mentioning before. So that attitude, the adult, it's a shit listener. It doesn't know how to listen, right? All it does is wait for a bit of a pause to butt in and say something that it knows, right? So the attitude of listening, learning how to listen to that child. How do you listen to the child when it seems to be making a lot of nonsense noises? And how do you listen to the child that can only express emotion and there's nothing logical about what's coming out? Right? You learn how to listen. So that supervisor, that adult, that hard-nosed, know-it-all bastard that thinks it's in charge, right, needs to soften up and learn how to listen.
Okay. I'll hear what
Or
you're
you know
saying.
what else you can do? You can say, Patricia, you go and sit down. You just rest now. Have a cup of tea. I'll be in charge here now for a while. Is that okay? And you can see she might walk away. That really happens.
Yeah. I'll see what to do about that. I'll see if I can do more of that. I think I'm, I suppose when it comes to other people, for example, I've improved as far as listening over the years. It might be obvious here, but I can listen to people for hours at a time and not try to give advice or judge or stuff. I just listen, and I'm better at that than I used to be. So I hope I can do it for myself, but I'm not sure.
Think back to your actual experience when that little child was saying something to you. Were you patient and open and listening?
Yeah, I listened as long as I could, and then I was like, oh, I don't want to forget this, and I wrote notes about it, and I said, well, let's come back to this as many times as we can until we've gone through it as much as we need to. And so I wrote a long note about it so I wouldn't forget, to the person I do focusing with. So I sent her an email about it and for next week, saying, oh, I want to come back to this. I don't want to forget the details. So I listened as long as I could, and then I wrote some detailed notes so I wouldn't forget the detail that came out when I was listening.
You felt that the quality of your listening was good?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. I guess, I suppose, the piece at the other end is that I always think, what am I going to do? What am I going to do about this? How am I going to solve this? How am I going to fix it? So I don't feel competent. I'm assuming that parents, whoever parents are here, they just feel confident all the time. They go, I know what to do. I'm an adult. And I'm waiting for that confidence to arise,
Yeah. You know what? Here's an interesting one. I felt a victim as a child a lot. I felt life was really unfair because it treated kids like they weren't actually people. And I convinced myself that when I got to 18, I would be mature enough that people would respect me and it would be okay. And, when I got to 18, it didn't happen. So I started to think, oh, it must be 21 when this happens. And when I got to 21, I thought, it's all a fucking lie. They're all just big kids. There's no adults in the room anywhere.
Yeah.
So your idea of competent adults, I think that's a bit of a myth. I don't think they actually exist.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes I see it a very small amount. Yeah, that's true. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's all experiment, isn't it? It's poke the bear and watch out what happens. Just play with this, play with that, and see what happens. But there's no hurry. How long you been at it? Forever and ever. There's no hurry.
Oh, yeah.
When it's going to happen or not. So, you know, that's it. Just play. It's all play.
Yeah. So
Light-hearted play. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for that, Don. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Yeah, cool.
So you gave my life purpose there for a moment. That was great.
Oh, that's funny. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I do feel like I have to come along and give a report. I think after all these weeks, I should be able to say that I've made progress. I feel happier, you know. That's what I feel I should be able to do by this stage.
Well, look, yeah, I don't see the end
like
result, but I definitely see changes in you. You have changed.
Yeah, there are changes. I know. Yeah, I just want to be more cheerful on a Saturday morning than I was recently, I think, or something. You know, yeah, a little bit more. There's some
But
changes.
it sounded like big progress that you made yesterday, Don, with the part you spoke. Sounds like massive progress to me. I was quite excited when you were talking about that, and now it's just finding that dismissive part that no matter what you do, it never thinks you're gonna. It thinks you've got to get somewhere, but there's nowhere to get. But that part of you thinks nothing's going to work. I'll never do this. And I'm talking from parts of me that are there as well. And once you get a handle on that and accept that, but then the little bits of progress are brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, no,
massive dismissive part.
There is, yeah. That's yeah, that's true. I feel like I've made a good lot of those little bits of progress over the years, and they don't seem to amount to much for some reason. So I'm cheerful when they happen, but I'm going, okay, this is great. Now I want to see this building into something bigger, because the small bits of progress have been made.
Yeah,
before.
but listen to that, what you just said. I want to see this building into something bigger. That part of you will never be satisfied. Ever.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Because those thoughts, they'll never amount to this'll never, are just dismissing all the progress that you've made over the years. All the progress.
Yeah.
And that's the part to catch. That's the part to catch those thoughts when they come in and go, yeah, but it's always but you know, yeah, but it's not gonna work. And you've tried it, and I've done IFS, and I could be saying the same things, but that once you see that part of you, it's okay for it to be there, and then you carry on.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it was good. I made some yesterday, and yeah, it was good.
That dismissive part of you is a big one.
Kelly would
Probably,
say something here too, by the look of it.
Kelly, yeah.
Kelly's
Go for it,
yeah.
Yep.
Just, I can really, really relate, Dom. I feel I've only been doing this a couple of years, but I'm really impatient. And don't think I'm getting anywhere. I ain't got a clue how to get into my body, if I'm honest. I try all these meditations and they don't work. But sleep hypnosis really worked for me. And I think that's how I learned to get in my body. And then I went through a stage of thinking I was going to wake up with dreaming and going crazy. But the IFS seems to have really broke something in me, because I can see them two parts now. And Anne's helped me with that, and Vince, the mother and the child. You know, the hard part of me will come on a meeting, not want to engage, you know, pretend everything's all right. I'm not struggling or suffering. And because it feels easier than letting the little child out, it's vulnerable and real and scared, and, you know, don't know what to do, don't know where she is. And I did some work yesterday, and all it is this big bad monster that, you know, our thoughts, like in my gut, just wants to be heard. I did an IFS meeting, and we went on like a dive, And it really scared me because I see like images in my mind more than talking. And I saw a little girl and teeth, you know, really sharp teeth, like, get the hell away from me. And it scared the living daylights out of me. So, of course, you know, my body then isn't safe to go into, you know, so I go on a big avoiding thing. And I went back in my body and I'm slowly going in it gently. And she just wants to be heard, that's all. She just wants to be heard. You know, wants the mother to hear her, and I can see that now. And I've had a lot of stomach ache, and I think that's just like, you know, expressing that she wants to be heard. And I'm quite grateful for it because like I'm an addict, and at the minute I'm going through sugar, coming off energy drinks and like Coke and things like that. I'm on day 6 and it's really, really hard. And I think this stomach ache has been given to me as a gift to stop, you know, to actually stop. And, you know, and I'm really, really grateful for that. And mentally, I know I'm not getting anywhere, but it just feels authentic for the first time ever. It feels nice, and I feel a bit hopeful. So, you know, IFS has worked for me, you know, and just keep trying that. I'm not saying that I'm gonna wake up, but I've got a smidgen of peace, and that feels really nice.
Cool. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. That's really good. Yeah. The sugar can be, just when you mentioned that, the sugar can be a hard one. I just have a small bit, I'm maybe not exactly the same as you were told, but I was struck by how intense that can be. Like, I spent several weeks getting off that a few years ago, and it was much harder than I thought, that you could be that stuck on sugar. It's hard. It really is.
It's really difficult with the alcohol. I've done drugs and smoking. They all seemed quite easy, even though maybe my mind tells me it was easy, but I don't know. But this sugar business is really hard and difficult, and struggling with it. But I'm quite hopeful that, you know, I'm getting into my body now, you know, and getting a little bit of peace around it.
Yeah, stuff really is, yeah. Now that flipping vape, just so I'm mentioning it up, because I saw you with a vape, didn't I, a few weeks ago? I gave up vaping last year sometime. Oh my God. It was so much harder than giving up cigarettes. Like 6 or 8 weeks later, I was still craving it every moment. Oh my God. Like giving up cigarettes for like 3 or 4 days, and you almost forget that you ever smoked before. And then like vaping like 6 weeks later, and you're so, it's really hard.
Oh, I'm dreading that one. I'll be doing that one next. I'll be coming to you for tips, Don.
Do, of course, yeah.
You could always suck your thumb like a baby. I'm not joking.
Maybe, yeah.
I've got, it's a metal chain, you put it round your neck, because I think it's a lot to do with the hand to mouth. And apparently you suck on it doesn't do anything, it hasn't got anything in it, but you just suck on this like empty tube. So I've got one of them ready, but I'm not doing it yet.
If you're really brave, you could use a baby's dummy, what the Americans call a pacifier. Yeah. Doing that in public would be interesting.
What do you call Angela's partner? What do you call her? Violet. She was saying about all these cravings. I think Kevin, he had something like similar as well. It's just, you know, like noticing you're reaching for something, and before you actually go for that, stop for a moment and notice what is happening in the body. Because there is something in the body that what we are trying not to feel in that moment. And that's when we are reaching. Because I used to drink, and that was every day. And what I realized now, I was trying to avoid the tension in the body. Because once you drink, you relax. Yeah. And, like that feels like, it just like squeezes you out of a body. I was like, oh, so this this is the reason why I was grabbing a drink, like, just like, oh. So yeah, it's more you go into a body and more you allow all these things to come up, less powers they have over you. But
Yeah,
I think smoking really is, Vince, as you said, like I couldn't get addicted to smoke. I did try, but I never got addicted to that for whatever reason. But I just, like, because I'm very, very passionate about, like what each addiction gives, like why people get addicted to them things. And one day I was really sitting just, like feeling into the smoking, what that gives. It actually is like, first of all, when we go for a smoke, we take a pause, like whatever this happens in the body, you just take a pause. It's like you're stepping out of that situation, whatever happens. And another thing, it really is like a dummy, like because you put something in the mouth and it feels like, feels inside, and it's just like it's calming, settling. So I think it is really, really attached to that part when you were like very like babies, toddlers age, the Susan calming. So yeah.
So the Americans don't call it a pacifier for no reason. Mm. And we never grow out of it. We just change the thing we put in our mouth. Right? Really, we need to carry around a latex breast with a nipple that we can suck on. But really, that stuff, it's feta 4 stuff. It's kind of, it's in front of us. Let's not, we let's be aware of it, but let's not be so hung up on it at the moment. We've got stuff that's kind of more fundamental than that. And that's not an excuse to do it, but it's just to recognize that it's a little bit more complex, and it is an identification thing. It has got to do with identifying with something that's not actually there. It's got to do with making something out of nothing. Yeah. How have you been, Ramiz? We haven't heard from you for a while.
A lot is going on. I had a wedding of my sister's wedding, and
well, there's nothing like a family get together to get things going.
yeah, it's it feels weird. I had a conversation with you in my head a few days ago, and I was thinking that I feel, how could I wake up if I am not feeling that I'm part of life, or I'm not fully committed to life, to living. And you asked me in my head, and you said, could you possibly be apart from life? And I said, no, but I feel like most of my life I have had this attitude of I don't want to live, and I'm just living because I got no choice. Um, and I remember there's a quote of Cioran that the idea of suicide was what kept him going, that the possibility that there are a way out. And I feel the same. And I feel like this is the reason that I'm not fully committed. I'm not fully in.
So what would Vince say about that?
Is that true?
Yes. How can you not be fully in? I get that you mean something, but that way of putting it is not very accurate, is it? So it's like it's really hard to find the right words to describe what actually is happening there. When you say you're not fully in, can you say that in a different way? Can you be more accurate about it? What do you mean by that?
I remember saying that because I'm resisting, there's a resistance happening here. And you told me, isn't resistance part of life? Or isn't resistance is what's happening?
So when I said to Don that he couldn't experience something that shouldn't be there, that everything has a place, is not that resistance telling you something? Isn't it legitimate?
Yeah, it's. I was feeling scared. I was feeling yesterday. I was feeling this like there's an opening or openness, but it's gray. It's hopeless. It's meaningless.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing to look forward for, but it's not claustrophobic.
Yep. It's more like
as
something
it used to
missing, eh?
be. Yeah, it felt like grief. Yeah.
Grief without a focus. there's a sadness about a loss, but we don't quite know what the loss is, just that there is a loss. Is that accurate?
I've got a burning question if he doesn't come back.
Yep, go.
It keeps flashing up for me, and it's quite new. It's like I'm starting to see that people aren't what I think they are. They're projections of what I think they are. So I'm not seeing people as they really are. Say, for instance, Kelly's a good friend of mine, so I'm seeing it with her. I'm seeing it with everyone, but I'm using Kelly because I have known her a while. And I suppose it's a kind of question, anything around that. It's like, I really want to see them as they are, because what I think they are just my conditioning and my projections. Somehow I don't even know what they are that I'm seeing, but they're not what I think they are. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's levels thing. So you cannot see them as they are. You can only see your interpretation of them. But still, I recognize what you're saying is that you want to relate to them as authentically as you can, right? But you can only ever relate to your interpretation of them. But that doesn't mean that you're overlaying them with it does mean that you're overlaying them with a story, but so how can I put it? Do it gently, right? Recognize that you are interpreting whatever you're seeing, whatever you're experiencing in them, but you're wanting to get that as accurate as you can. You're wanting your interpretation to fit with what they're expressing. Right? So it's like there's no arrogance that says, I know. There's always a curiosity about what they are expressing. And so,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
I mean, I know I come across a bit
I've
arrogant.
got set ideas that I don't like.
Yes, yeah. And well, be gentle with yourself as well, right? Because people who think that they're really in touch with somebody else are just ignoring the fact that they're projecting their own stuff out onto them. Right? So you're not ignoring that. right? But by acknowledging that that's what's happening, you can be much more gentle in your interpretation. You can be much more curious. Your interpretation can have lots of question marks in it, if you know what I mean, rather than be a statement of fact.
I think I do stay open.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of my stepdaughter now. I think I do stay open to that. But I think I know that I've been so wrong in the past. So there's an openness, and it's always trying to keep that loving point of view.
Yeah. Well, yeah, be careful. Don't try too hard with any of that stuff, but recognize that when in the past, you probably, I imagine, that you thought you knew.
Yeah, exactly. And what I'm seeing, that's true. I saw rigidly that I was putting them in boxes, and I was proved wrong a lot of the time. Whereas now, I thought that had gone, but now it's just a subtle veil.
Yep.
It's like, so there's still a bit of that veil. There's still a subtle.
Of course. Yeah, this takes practice. Yeah. It takes a lot of practice to get that way, you know.
I don't know how to penetrate that veil anymore. I mean, noticing it's quite interesting. It's showing itself to me.
Yep. So what's your response to noticing it?
My response?
I'm
quite excited because it's a new seeing. It's a new,
Yep.
That's interesting.
It's right.
I'd like to be behind that.
And there's a softening that comes with that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a softening, but there's also a bit of like, it can slip away, and I don't want it to slip away.
Oh.
I want it to be, I want to know how to handle it, and not even handle it, but I just like to see beneath it.
Yep. And you will, when you're ready to, you will. Now, that makes it sound like it's a thing that will happen as such, but it's an evolution. It's much more a progression, that kind of thing. So when you see that veil come up, instead of saying, oh, that shouldn't be there, you go, oh, isn't that curious? What's that about? What is it I'm experiencing? Right. So it'll be something in yourself that creates that veil. It doesn't come from the other person.
True. Always true.
Yeah, I'd love to add that since we're projecting everything onto what it's hard to see in the instant, but anything that comes down is protective to the system, including disliking, feeling that people are aggressing or they're not agreeing, because I recently had pretty profound and intense sort of understanding that started off with somebody sort of in a way, I felt that they were gaslighting. And this huge protective mechanism came of like, how dare she, and this and that. And I sort of sat and I could see the layers, and it really the layers went so, it took a few days and so deep that it was all these layers of protection regarding also a perceived childlike annihilation of self, that the self had been engulfed by something huge and other, and the defensive mechanisms had been put in place that meant that anything that seemed to, even if we have an opinion, if that seemed to rub up against, then it was protection against, oh, they're trying to, it was always like the self, this fault, you know, concept, but it was a was safe, it was a safety, it was a like life and death almost response of the body.
Yeah.
And that's when I started listening to Stephen Porges talking about the vagus nerve and how that's put in place, and the understanding of the flight and fight, and then the freeze mechanism, which actually is the first sort of response to a life and death experiences. I could really see how the structures come in place, but also with it, because of it, there's also huge self judgment, and it's all part of the system. And so we are supposed to be loving, behave beautifully, like we've been taught, but something is has been, you know, the natural ebullience or will. I mean, for me, I got to a place where I felt that it was either self or will that was being obliterated, and it had to be, you know, realized that it had just fled in terror, but it was projection. So it was like, okay, that came later, that understanding, but it's all, this is so important, is that it's all self-protection of this fragile part. And so anything to want to get rid of it or not to honor it, so, and you're saying you're trying to be loving, that's
no, I don't always find the right words. I know what you're saying, Rowena, but what I'm talking about is more subtle than that, because I sat with the thing from last week with the hard wall with me and my daughter, and our relationship seems to have shifted, because I really could see that and I really moved with that, and that worked well. But this is a really subtle layer. It's very easy to see when you're in conflict with someone, or you don't like someone, or you're protecting yourself from someone. This is with, even with friends like Kelly, who I don't really feel that with ever, and my daughter, I do a bit, but it's more subtle than that. That's why there was right, that's another layer, because it's a very thin, subtle layer. And I can see that it's probably still protective. That makes sense, but it's more of a like, no matter what, whether it's loving or not towards someone, you know, even if I love someone a lot and I don't feel, and I trust them and I don't feel I've got to protect myself particularly, excuse me 1 second. Well, then it's like, oh God, I'm still not seeing them. That's what's kind of surprised me about it. Even when I'm loving someone, I'm still not seeing them.
Yeah.
And that's what surprised me about it, because in a sense, it's quite easy to work when there's a reaction, or with the wall with my daughter, which I thought would be difficult, but it was quite easy. Everything's in me. There's no one out there. It's all to do with me. So there are no others, in a sense. They're all projections. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, I want to jump in. I want to jump in and say to you, there's nothing lost. You've moved in a beautiful, appropriate direction, right? You never ever did see them as they were. You always projected. And when you didn't know you were projecting, you were much more blind to what they really were than you are now.
Yeah, I agree. I see that completely. Now I'm seeing them.
Yes, now you're seeing them better than you ever have. Yes.
Yeah, it's great how I'm seeing people now, because a lot of the layers have dropped. It feels like kind of quite a fine layer now, sometimes, where I'm quite interested even to see through that fine layer of protection.
Yeah, I mean, I totally have, you know, completely resonate with the way it's going for you, Anne. And it does become very subtle. And I didn't really, I had no idea how subtle until I started doing 6 feta work of looking, and all of this time I would get things that would jump out of the environment, and I would feel fear, but I didn't really know how to work with it except for just, I mean, and I'm using the label fear, but I would just sit with the sensation saying, this is really curious. This is, why would a doorknob make me feel like that? And then the other day I was just doing some exercises sort of with my arms and shoulders, neck and things. And 2 trees in the neighboring gardens are lined up, and it became this great big, it was a sort of energetic, it was so supple or symbolic, but I would call it almost, yeah, between a subtle and symbolic and energetic. The 2 trees lined up, and it looked like an enormous sort of Buddha on on layers looking down at me, and all of a sudden I could feel all these sensations of like terror. And I just sat, and then I went into another room, and I was able to sort of keep working with it. And it took me on a hugely intense journey of this annihilation by a bigger, more powerful adult who happened to be my mother. And it was terrifying, but it was almost a battle of will, of will, or of, in a way, childlike will is almost the development of self, which had to succumb because I could sense also in it, there was completely frozen, but completely terrified of succumbing. But these layers, and I don't think that it's completely finished, but it's just this subtle layers of, keep working, and then feeling into this energetic environment, of subtle environment, but what is it that it sounds like almost the nervous system. Stephen Porges uses a word, neuroception, which is prior to perception. So it's like the feelers of the nervous system still activated, sensing some type of danger, because the self-soothing mechanism isn't full and open in the body.
Yeah.
There's no real safe place to fully be in the environment, even with a doorknob, because it represents other.
Right. That sounds quite scary. That you would
It's
get
only
scared.
sensation. It's only, it's intense. I would say it's intense. The scary is I want to run from it. But if you take it in a very gentle path of just saying, oh, I can feel that I'm not fully there with someone. It's just a natural, it's survival. And it's not you, yeah. It's the body mechanism of the polyvagal, the nervous system, little by little opening up to receive.
Yeah, that
and projection, because from an early age, it works both ways. You gave up that you were developing an integral part sense. You had to give it up, and there was no there wasn't enough development of safety within the body it wasn't given, you didn't receive it enough. And so it's extraordinary. But and it's just working
in a simplistic way, because I have to keep things really simple. My mind doesn't do complicated and lots of words, but in a simplistic way, then it's just even the fine layer is just the fear of being with them fully, and that little girl sense that I'm developing, that childlike sense, is where it's all at from the beginning, and it's going back to having that delicate, fragile part be able to be open in all situations without being afraid. So there's a complete openness.
Yeah.
And learning that any sensation, like if you get frightened of a doorknob, it's not about the doorknob, it's about the sensation of like, okay then, darling, that sensation's here again. And again, just talking with that in a fragile part that wants to be completely open without the protectors trying to protect it.
Yeah, try and drop the wants to be completely open, because I don't think that child part, I think that's another part that says, because how is it to be completely open? How would that be? How would you define that?
Well, I'm defining it as
other than the fact that the way you're feeling right now isn't adequate.
I'm defining it as there's no filters anymore. The filters are the illusion, and there's no need for those filters because there's nothing to be protected.
There is need for the filters. There is need for the filters because the body's intelligence, which was short-circuited, will stay until little by little, not the mind, not the thoughts. The thoughts can turn round and round and lead you on, lead us up the garden path. But it's the body that's got to learn to start to it's been dysregulated.
Yeah.
The nervous system is dysregulated. And my experience was that I'd gone beyond any child. It was sheer neurological neurons in a dysfunctional, like a record that repeats loop that was beyond, it was pre-verbal. And so it's just taking these gentle steps of dipping into the sensation, dipping into the sensations of labeled fear, and then saying, can I go where angels fear to tread? Can I take a little step there and just feel this sort of all over, or whatever, how it feels like, and just a little bit until there's a relaxing, and then a tiny wee bit more. And
yeah, I'm not, when I say that the filters don't need to be there, obviously they need to be there at the moment because they are, and it's still feeling it's not ready to be fully there without filters. So that's what I feel I'm learning, like baby steps to be more what I'm calling open or without filters. There's no rush for that. It's just interesting to see some movement with that, to see the movement of like, oh, do we need that protection anymore? That protection's there, but just like you say, treading where angels fear to tread, because it seems fragile and delicate. And so yeah, I think we're talking the same thing. And the thing I refer back to is before non-duality, I went on a hypnotherapy course and some weird shit started happening and I had to leave it. But one of them was no filters. It was either that or a psychotic break, which might be the same thing. But I remember there were instances where for once I was looking out the window and there's a black cat right at the end of a long garden and it felt like it was here and I was the cat and it was looking into me and I was looking into it. And I now understand that in non-duality terms, the filters for a minute seem to have dropped. And then another time I was driving with my husband in the passenger seat and it happened again, but with people on the street. And all I wanted to do was get far away from them as I could. I wanted to jump into the back seat because there were two. It was oneness. There was no filter, and it was terrifying. And I see that as the place that I'm going toward gently, with the filters being dropped.
Except, don't forget, Anne, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So all this is, these are ideas about filters. Yeah, filters is a very good word to use, but where you're going to end up or what you're going to get and how it's going to be has got nothing to do with you, self, Anne.
Mm.
So everything that you're creating is conceptual.
Mm.
And it's only here now.
Difficulty because I already know the final result because I'm already there. So it's a kind of magical mystery tour of concepts and dream working itself out. But I know I'm already awake, always.
Yeah, but
there's a conceptual play unraveling in front of that. But
yeah, the danger is awakening isn't for a person.
I know.
And there's
Absolutely.
no knowing about it.
No, I know.
There is nothing to, there's nothing to, in a way, to say about it, because it's little tastes that almost that can't be, there isn't any knowing. I don't know. And so it's much better to, if the saying of I know, you know immediately who is it, what knows, other than a thought.
No, because we have to use words. That's the only way I can put it. But it's already, unknown is the only way. It's unknown, it's unspeakable. There's no words, there's no concepts to put to it. There's no self, there's no one at all here. It's a dream. But I can only put words to it because when the dream's still appearing, I have to be authentic about that. But I already know it's already present. It's already, you can't not be awake. You can't not be. It's the cinema screen. It's always the cinema screen. It's the movie that's still appearing that I'm trying to unravel. But the movie and the sin that's appearing is the illusion, and the awakeness that's always there knows it's an illusion. But it doesn't stop it being there. It doesn't stop it appearing. It'll appear till it doesn't appear. And there seems to be something to unravel in the movie, where, you know, and calling it body trauma that we're unraveling. But the place of no self is already here. And when all the filters have been unraveled and the illusion and the dream, then that place that Angelo describes perfectly It's not a place, but I can't put words to it because it's undescribable. So I know what you mean when, you know, the disillusionment of the disintegration of will and self.
Yeah, the only thing is that the when takes you away from the now.
But
because
yeah.
you don't know, it's not up to you to drop the filters.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not. No, I've got no control.
No.
But
You
it
can
can
only
seem, like I have in the dream. So that's all I've got to work with, the seeming illusion, because I've been in a place where I've denied all that. There's no one here, nothing's happening, it's all done, there's no one. I've been there, and now I can't deny I'm doing the other bit of clearing out. I'm not doing it, but it's clearing out itself. It's clearing itself out of all the yucky, illusionary crap that's going on.
Yeah, and that's you know, that's very real because it's been lived. The experience has been there and it's been lived. The only thing is the when, because that's putting some sort of expectation and charge.
Yeah, I do try and stay away from that, because that is a bit of a hook, isn't it? I try and stay away from I will wake up, I will be this. That's why I say I am.
Because you won't.
because I can't be, because I already am. Really.
Yeah.
So all I can do now is explore the illusion that I'm not.
Okay, can we do just a little, I mean, it might not be very easy to do here, but can you sense in and say quite firmly, I am already awake?
Yeah, it feels good. Yeah.
Is there any so it feels good. And anyone else also working? Now, the other question is, am I already awake? Is there any difference? In a sensory, I'm talking about sensing.
First one was way better for me, Rowena.
It was better for you?
Much better, yeah.
I think the second one invites the doubt, which is a big one. The second question is almost inviting the doubt that well, there's still a mess to clear up, isn't there? There's still all that internal junk, trauma.
Anna, did you have any?
Yeah, a first one, actually in both, especially first one, you know, I'm already awake. I just go, that's all bullshit.
Yeah.
On the second one, am I awake? But it's all thoughts and thoughts and thoughts. but there is sensation in the tummy, like really just like.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah. Both my responses were, what a lot of shit. Why are we even saying this? Yeah.
Yeah, the second one actually, okay, I've got a third one. Oh, I don't know, I play around with these sometimes. I haven't done it for a while, and I did have a couple. Another one. Is there a self?
No.
No, don't answer. We're looking for a body response.
Just sensations.
Yeah, but so compare. Okay, so let's go back to the first one, because I think these are a better comparison. And it's not what thought says, it's body sensation. So I am awake.
Rowena, you see that third question, is there a self? This was very strong physical, body sensation reaction. I just like someone comes from a back and just grabs your guts and just pulls them out. I was just like,
Oh, it's funny because it just shows that we have the pointing exercise of the truth and lie, and it's not always a very it shows a different response. So it wasn't a very good experiment because I found that when I have in the past sort of looked, is there a self? Where is the self? It would be like the body would be sort of in a way laughing. It wasn't even doubt. It was already known, and so there was like a laughing of like, ha ha ha, this is just so crazy. So there was actually a sort of like a even the question I don't know. I think I'm sorry. It wasn't good.
No, I find it very good because it's pointed exactly where is something still, like needs attention.
Yeah.
Because normally about this self and me, like looking, and it just feels like transparency, like it just like falls through, any thought is just like falling through. But this time it was just like really just like just went directly there. So yeah, I will practice this question.
Yeah, it's just about playing with questions to see what the body responses are. That's what I sort of wanted to introduce.
That was really useful for me. That was really useful for me, Rowena, because it sort of came out the blue. If I think, oh, I'm going to do an exercise, I've got to get it right. And as soon as I'd gone through it, I thought, oh gosh, did I get that right? That is such a pointer for me about this getting things right or wrong. But because it kind of just happened without any thought, I'm already awake. I felt excitement. And when you said the second one, am I already awake, the question, there was this sinking feeling. So that was so did I get it right?
Of course.
According to Rowena, is that how you experienced it?
No, it's I don't really, there's no right or wrong. It was I was sort of not feeling that maybe the questions that I brought in were very necessarily helpful because maybe they were too similar. But the point is of the exercise is for us to ask little questions and just see what the body response is and go with that. Because if there's an opening up that feels like opening, then oh yeah, and then if there's a closing down, then.
So of course, my response after all that was, well, perhaps I need to have that as a affirmation. Should I use it as a mantra?
No mantras.
I know that, but I'm just telling you what came. So actually, it was a very useful pointer, but not perhaps in the way that it was meant to be.
Try and make sense of this one. My experience was that I was lying on my back, looking at a screen about a foot above me, but there was no screen, but I was watching a Roadrunner cartoon. I have no idea what it means. But there was Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner were running around up there with almost with all three of those questions. I have no idea what it means. Yeah.
No,
it was nonsense. It was just all nonsense.
Yeah, of course. But the point is just noticing what the body says too, because of the connection with the well, the connection with, I think, really having a body knowing that there's no self, or a mind knowing that there's a mind, an intellectual understanding or an experiential. I think that's where it's
yeah, well, of course my mind wanted to analyze things, so what I imagined was that lying on my back like that was a helpless posture. I was expressing helplessness, and I was just, all I could do was observe this fictional stuff, this cartoon. It was not just fictional, it was unreal, like a cartoon. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I got from yours, Vince. You said they're not very good questions, Rowena. I think they're brilliant questions. I mean, I've never ever heard one say, ask, am I awake? Ever. And when I asked it, it was like, depends what awake means to you, because it's just a word, isn't it? But there was a relief. There was a relief. Oh, thank God she's asked me. Like, the relief is nothing to do. Do you know what I mean? And then the opposite question, is there a self? Was there something to do? The clearing up the mess. So the am I awake was the relief of like, oh, there's nothing to do, I'm awake. And then the other part of it was, oh yeah, there's a self to clear up.
Work to do.
So it shows that there's a little discrepancy perhaps in an owning awakeness, and then the idea of self is still maybe a concept that somehow has, who knows? It's just so interesting to see. And there's nothing that you should do. It's just playing, it's just playing around with getting the body on board when you ask questions. Like you can ask yourself, like, when am I going to wake up, or when will all the filters be left up, and the poor body probably will say, go away.
I found it quite a nice exercise to notice that that the self is nothing but a thought, and how can I ever have access to a thought with my sensory perceptions? It's like, for example, from here, I mean, that's about the senses, but even in between the senses, I mean, if I can look into the living room of my neighbor on the other side of the room, how can I tell if he's listening to music? By watching, I mean.
Yeah, and it's really interesting what you just said, Leonard, because that if there's absolutely, this is just like just a thought, and there's absolutely no connection with it, then it's just it's nonsense. It's like, why would? But if there is a body response, then it shows there's something being touched in the
Are you with us again, Ramiz?
Yes, but the light went off.
Oh, okay. Your internet dropped out before too, eh?
I didn't hear.
When you disappeared, I thought your internet must have dropped out.
Yeah.
I was very touched by what you were saying before. It felt important. Yeah. I wondered if what was missing for you was a sense of connection with the world, with with the world, with
Yeah, it felt like utter loneliness.
yes, yeah. And so there's only absolutely necessary involvement, but no willing involvement. Would that be true?
I felt like I'm partially. Sometimes I feel like there is a sense of curiosity about what's happening. There's like
Okay.
a space,
Yeah.
but sometimes I feel like I'm sucked in this loneliness and it's so heavy.
Cool. Yeah. But that sense of curiosity for me, it evokes that there's a kind of an invitation. There's a willingness to engage in that. Is that do you feel that?
Yeah, I was not trying to escape or distract myself. I was just in it.
Yep.
And in the body and
So what's your feeling about the world out there? Is it a friendly place, or what is it? How do you feel about that? You know, the loneliness says something, but I'm not sure what. Is it
it feels like the world out there unmanageable. It's
okay.
so big that
Yes. Yeah.
and I'm so small.
Yep. So it's pretty overwhelming.
Yeah.
And it's powerful and you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. do correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to understand, or I'm trying to connect. Yeah.
It's also, it feels like it doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it doesn't, does it? Yeah. And that's partly because of the size of it, eh? It's such a huge thing, and you're so insignificant in the scheme of things, eh? So is alone the same as loneliness?
Yeah, it feels the same.
Hmm. So in a world that's so big, and how insignificant you as an individual are in that world, is it possible not to be alone or to have loneliness? Is that possible?
Maybe.
So what would need to change for that, for you to not feel alone or feel loneliness? Is it something in the world that needs to change, or something in you? What does it feel like? Don't you? We're not looking for an intellectual answer. What does it feel like?
I thought before that if people would understand me, that this would make me feel less lonely.
Mm-hmm. You say,
But I don't believe this anymore.
okay, yeah. So now what would need to change?
I have no idea. I don't think something out there can that needs to change. Or
Okay, yeah, I agree. I agree with you there. So does that bring you back to something in you that needs to change? You said maybe you can get there. So is it something in you that needs to change?
maybe if I start not giving a shit about being alone or not.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that feels a bit jarring for me. That idea that you can how can you do that? You can pretend, but what you really feel isn't something you can manipulate, is it? You feel it or you don't feel it. So if you feel like it doesn't matter, but where does that feeling come from? How do you get that feeling?
I think it will happen or it doesn't.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. See, I say that, you know, myself is such a convoluted mystery that I don't know myself. So how can it's not possible for anybody else to know me. They can't. I don't know me. It's just, I'm a mystery. But that doesn't make me feel bad. That kind of makes me feel free in a weird kind of way. It means that what it means for me is that it doesn't matter. It's the whole thing is quite irrelevant to anything. But for you, it does matter, doesn't it? Does it?
I'm not sure anymore.
Yeah.
I had an experience a few days ago. I was having a conversation with my ex-girlfriend, and it was intense. And I felt this visual thing that happens sometimes where things seem so close and far at the same time, so big and small at the same time. It's like I felt like she's inside me somehow.
Yep.
And I told her that it feels like you are inside me, and it's so weird. and I felt like she was asking me if I hate her, and I felt like, how could I possibly have any feelings towards you? It's like whatever feelings I have, it's about me. It will hit you and it will come back at me again.
Yeah.
I felt like I don't know you.
Yeah.
And she was very confused. And before, I was trying to be like nice. I was trying to be understanding, compassionate, all this stuff. And it felt like we are suffocating each other somehow. And I felt, and I was provoking her to actually, for her to be angry at me and to say the things that she doesn't want to say. And there was some truth in it, and not in the content of how she sees me or what feelings she doesn't want me to feel, but the fact that she said something she was scared to say. And it was so weird that I didn't know whose feelings. Like, is it my feeling or her feelings? It was so like it was completely like I'm projecting onto her, she's projecting onto me, and it's so confusing. Like, I don't know whose feeling is this. But it felt like there's this feeling of cruel feeling or angry feelings in the air, like it's self-hatred, self-loathing, like, attacking.
Do you think that was trying to change that confusion about you and her, who was projecting who had that she was inside you? Was it trying to solidify something, to draw a boundary? Do you think that's what that anger, that provocation was about?
I have no idea.
Mm. Yeah, okay. What was your feeling about that that ambiguity, that feeling like you there was no clear you or her, that they were kind of intermingled somehow? What was your feeling about that?
Funny and disorienting.
Yeah.
And maybe a little scary.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me think or feel that connection is a possibility. But how come there's moments of connection happens? Like what connect with what? Like
Well, that's there. Don't ask that question. There's no answer to that. But yeah, I was thinking, what you experienced was a connection. It was actually a really intimate connection that happened, and it scared the shit out of you. Wow, that's really interesting, isn't it? But yes, no, there's no answer to what connects to what. That, what we're calling a connection, that's just a feeling of intimacy that happens, and there's nobody feeling it, and there's no object to pin it on either. It's something that happens. Yeah.
I feel this constant push and pull, like this defense mechanism of part of me wants to get close and part of me wants to push away. And
Yes, I get that. So the part of you that yearns, and then there's a part of you that gets frightened, and that's perhaps where the anger came from. The provocation was pushing away, eh?
yeah, it was like it was also like it was suffocating. It was like
Yes, there was no space
there
between
was
you. Yeah.
manipulation. It was provoking. It didn't feel right. I don't know.
Yeah, well, of course, there's context as well. So maybe it just simply wasn't appropriate for you to feel that kind of connection, given that she was your ex-girlfriend. But who knows? That's speculation anyway. But yes. So part of you wants that connection, and then when you are feeling it, you feel a bit suffocated. That's kind of interesting, and very reasonable. You know, we can hold all these paradoxical things easily. We can have quite opposing views at the same time. That's quite human. We just don't usually acknowledge that they're both there at once. Yeah.
Just going back to, Vince, tell me if it's sort of out of place, going back into the science and the polyvagal, which I had to listen to a couple of videos on. He was talking, Stephen Porges, about, you know, the flight, fight, freeze responses, and how, of course, there's defensive mechanisms that get put in place and can become chronic, a low-grade dysregulation of that nervous pathway from an early age. And so whenever there is a belief that there is no safety, there can be a chronic low-lying anxiety, because safety was never ever fully introduced into the body at a very early age. And so therefore, there's this push-pull, and if connection does come, then the body will say, oh, this isn't safe, because there's a double pathway, and it goes up, and the brain's saying, I can't get comfortable because then I'm going to be vulnerable, so I need to close down. Yeah. And so it's a nervous system, again, which dysregulation that little by little can be, you know, can be put back more into finding the safety within the body. But I found it really helpful, because it's nice to know that the functionings, that it's not up to a self, it's the bodysuit, the meat suit, and it's very fine, very sensitive, like a sensitive system that didn't receive the optimal, perhaps, attunement for each system, because each nervous system is completely different. Everything comes from billions of years ago, so so I don't know if that's a helpful thing to take with you, that it's a gentle, slow process of protection.
It sounds like it fits. Ramesh, what do you reckon?
It's sort of pre-verbal, you know. It is as he uses this neuroception rather than perception.
I was thinking about how self-hatred like plays a part of self-protection, because it feels like I feel this energy of like self-destruction, like, and it doesn't make sense in this model of safety. Or
it could be a little bit of a you know, intertwining of another you know, different types of traumas, but in some ways it makes sense to me because of getting to the place of projecting the fact that everything somehow this safety or will, because there was will in it, and a sense of like, I'm frozen here because I'm not going to fight and I'm not going to flee, I'm going to stay here, but this is the most terrifying thing in my life. And so therefore I've got to capitulate and I've got to fawn. This was the scenario that was going on, but that energy somehow of annihilation was was there, but it was an annihilation of this self-construct that was trying to defend itself as a terribly young child, where there's no concept for that, but something was forming, and that it hadn't been allowed to form correctly. And so that self-destruct does fit into the experience that I had. Logically, rationally, I can't really say, and I can't even say how owning that projection that I put out there, it's like there was more boundary space created here. And the more we can own our boundary space as a individual sort of self bodysuit, the more it can open up to transparency and permeability in engagement, in a letting go, an open way, if that makes sense. So it's like you have to reform something, some boundaries of whatever it is, energetic boundaries that have been compromised due to the environment being maybe just too much for some individuals, are very high strung, highly sensitive, and the environment is just too much. And so as a child, you just can't cope with all the sensory overload. And it has an impact on the whole self system.
About the boundaries and the sense of is it a thought or energetic thing? When I feel, for example, that my boundaries are being crossed and there's this defensive, it feels like energy before it's a thought. It feels like and
how does the energy feel, Ramis? How does it feel through as a sensation for you? How do you read the energetic movement? How does it show itself to you? As
sometimes it's not very clear. Like I can't discern between like boundary or like protecting my boundaries, or I'm crossing a boundary. Like it feels like a black and white choice, like either you attack me or I attack you kind of thing. And it's so hard to like so I was trying to figure out the boundaries with my mind, like what's supposed to happen in this situation, who's right, who's wrong, or whatever. But when I try to look for the answer in the body, I'm still not sure. It's I have noticed, even like a few days ago, I was buying a shoes, and it's like for the first time I asked myself, do I actually feel comfortable in this shoe? And it was hard for me to actually answer the question. It was like, it's like I was for the first time paying attention to the sensation in my foot, like what? And it was like even I have to make up the criteria for a comfortable shoes. Like I have to make it up. Like I don't know what what to look for.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. Like what the hell? I never paid attention to the shoes that I'm buying if it was comfortable. And it's like little thing like this, like, and I was also watching Penella videos talking about this, the same thing about boundaries and sensing the body, what the body needs. And it's like I'm starting to notice this when I'm holding, not going to the bathroom, or I'm hungry but I'm not eating, or is.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. It sounds like a good sign to me. You're coming alive.
Yeah.
Curiouser and curiouser though, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's and then it can become when the hold takes, because I totally resonate with what you're saying, Ramis. The hold takes, then it can be inconvenient because it's like, oh, okay, my body says, sorry, I got to stop now, because my body says, well, you're not going to make me say my body says, but I've got to do this. And it just is like you start to listen, and it's black and white. I have to go, I've got to go to the loo or whatever, and it's got to be now, because it's got, you know, whereas before it would be, okay, well, I'll just finish this and do this, and I do need to go, but and then little by little, it's like, no, okay, now that's the signal off, you know. And so it'll be fun for you to see how that develops.
So here's an example happened also, but I'm not sure how to like understand it. In my sister's wedding, I've never like been in a wedding before, almost, and I never danced in a wedding, and it's so uncomfortable for me. And I was in the wedding, and my sister was calling for me on the stage to dance with her, and I felt like my body is freezing, and I felt like if I stand up, I will have a breakdown. I either will fall or I will cry. Something will happen. And somehow I didn't want to upset her, and I woke up to her and danced with her for a few minutes, and in this moment, did I just override my like boundaries, like, or did I confront an illusory fear of like, what's the problem if I dance? Like,
It wasn't a boundary.
That's wonderful. Sorry, Vince, you.
It just occurred to me, no, I don't think it was a boundary issue. It was something else happened. I can resonate with that. I used to be so self-conscious that I could not get up and dance.
Did you, Ramis, what would be interesting, because at the time it was wonderful that you were completely aware of all those sensations that what you were being flooded with. Would be interesting to see if you can take them to your little lab when you have a moment of on your own, and embody or allow the sensations to come back and communicate to you, sort of just feel those sensations that were flooding you just prior to your sister. So if you can recreate the scene sort of energetically.
yeah, I was trying to feel into it, and there's this fear, belief, or I don't know, that I'm helpless to do something that's simple to make somebody else happy, or a feeling of I'm not good enough. I'm not what they want, what they expect from me.
What
Or
about
I want
exposure? The word exposure.
maybe.
I think trying to understand it could be a bit of a distraction as well. So my suggestion would be that you, what Rowena said, take it to the lab by simply recalling the feeling that you had when she first asked you to come and dance with her. Right? Don't think about her. It's not about you pleasing or not pleasing her. Just get into the feeling, the sensations and the stories that come up with that sensation at the moment when she asked you to do it. That's when you would have had that shock of having to consider your ability to do it. And just sit in that moment, stay in that moment for a little while and see what happens.
I didn't feel like I made the choice. It
Yes,
felt
good.
like something happened. I don't know.
Yep. Yes, if you had to make a choice, you would still be sitting there, wouldn't you? You wouldn't have got up. Something happened and something broke for you to get up. Some spell that was there when she first asked you, that freeze that happened when she first asked you, that sudden onset of fear when she first asked you, that broke for you to get up.
And I kind of feel like proud of like doing something out of character. Like,
Take
how the fuck
ownership
did I
of
do
it.
this?
Yes. Yeah. Rather than I mean, you know, feel that pride, but recognize that things happen. Things, you know, we're not locked into anything, you know. Things we can it's like a spell gets broken and suddenly we're in a different world. It can happen like that, you know. It's, yeah, but it's also a bit of a mystery. We don't have to understand it, but yes. So if let's say if you were find yourself at a dance tomorrow night for whatever, let's say your sister was having an after marriage party or something, and she asked you again, probably the same thing would happen, but in a smaller way, and it would be different because of that, because you've already experienced that ability, if you like, that whatever happened, you now know that it can happen. Whereas before, yesterday when it happened, it was a surprise that it happened.
The question I'm having now is how far should I push myself, or
you can't push yourself at all.
It feels sometimes.
That's what John does. He pushes himself. You can't do that. No point. Doesn't work. And it also means that you're not being gentle with yourself. And don't succumb to the story that if you don't push yourself, nothing will happen. It'll happen. So it's not.
It doesn't feel.
Sometimes it takes a little courage. A little courage will turn up, but it's not that you can't take pride in that courage. It's either there or it's not there. So sometimes you'll be able to break that spell, not by pushing yourself, but by just switching into an objective place where you're kind of not doing it yourself. You're just watching it being done. You're watching Ramiz get up and dance rather than you making it happen. It's easy to delude ourselves that we have to push ourselves to make things happen. It's really difficult in the beginning to recognize that those things will happen without pushing. But after it's happened a couple of times, it's easy. But in the beginning, it's really hard. It's all a big experiment. And all we can do is watch it. And we can't really even do that, but yeah, we get the idea.
Even the pushing myself feels like a desire to change who I am, or
Yeah, but that desire exists anyway, doesn't it?
and it doesn't feel like my desire. It doesn't feel. It feels like I'm doing this for somebody else, or
Yeah. Somebody else who's also called Ramis, or some other
like
person.
I project onto somebody else, like I do this for this person to make him happy.
Yeah. You danced for your sister, not for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I'm
okay.
playing a role for you to make you happy.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. That may be the case, but it's not you playing the role to make me happy. There is a desire there to connect. That's what you call make me happy, is about connection, isn't it? So that you might, if you say, oh well, it's about approval, it's still about connection. Why would you want to please somebody if you didn't want to connect with them? Of course you want to connect with them. That's our human nature, to connect. We're herd animals.
It can also be due to for safety. You know, if you're do you know? Would you say that according to Panilla's 3 types, there's the bully, the passive aggressive bully, and the chameleon.
I feel like I'm more the passive aggressive.
Mm-hmm. And so when you're in the passive side, there's that sort of merging, because there's a security mechanism going on. I mean, it can be, or it can be the way Vince was saying it, of a genuine desire, but sometimes it feels, because I can recognize the passive aggressive of doing things because of the yes, getting approval, but why do I need approval? Because it makes me feel safe. I don't want to have somebody holding something against me, because I can't bear that sort of thinking.
Fear of guilt and
feeling of
guilt and shame.
Feeling of being vulnerable and held in disapproval, because that has a feeling of annihilation or some strange, some strange sort of reasoning, because it all goes back into child reasoning. So it's interesting to follow the thread of, if you can, and energetically or through sensations, emotions, of the thread into that base, the root, how it would feel if I hadn't done that, or didn't do that, because already you had all those sensations of protection, but you overrode, because there was the desire, the sensations that were initially there that you overrode, because there was something more important to obtain, which was not have disapproval. And then the projection is, well, or whatever word, the projection is okay, so that I'm actually doing that to myself, because I'm not, when the circuit scene of how you're putting it out on the other, and then you say, oh wow, that's actually what I'm really doing to myself, because I wish I would be other, I should be like this, I should be like that, and the not self-honoring.
Could you explain this?
Gosh. So my friend, the other day, she told me, because I'm have a quite difficult life situation, that I'm looking after my husband, who has a degenerative illness. He won't get better, and she helps. And she told me, she said, I do this, and she's paid for it. She said, I do this from pleasure. She said, you are miserable, Tom is miserable, you should find alternative arrangements. I was completely dumbstruck. And then afterwards, I was filled with rage, or with anger. How dare she? You know, how dare she know whether I'm miserable or not miserable? But then after I got through the reaction, I sort of sat and I said, okay, I'm projecting. What am I projecting? Well, yes, there was some truth that there are times when it's a terrible situation on many levels, because it's taken over my life, and also it's a terrible thing to witness somebody who, you know that they're not going to get better. But ultimately, the pushing away was because I felt being aggressed and invaded by her. And so then it's like, how am I allowing myself? So it wasn't exactly that. How am I allowing myself to be invaded? You know, what is it? What is the mechanism that is happening? And then I don't know if you were listening when I was talking about the doorknobs and sort of things out there that would bring prickles of fear. It was that the other, symbolically, even though symbolically I put the feelers out there against another encroaching on my space. But this was just this was a person, but I also was always doing it, keeping the visual world somehow of objects away from me. So I saw that it was very weird, very curious, but it was seeing how just other objects, and then linking some idea that they were encroaching on my space and they were going to invade my space. And so I could feel that I had put up all these blockages. Somehow they were invisible, subtle, energetic, of not letting things come near, but I was completely unconscious of it. I only became conscious of it by understanding why, how is it that I'm projecting that somebody could invade my space. I'm not very good at explaining. I get lost when I don't know if that makes sense. It's like following a thread of finding the simplest understanding of a situation. That person made me feel I needed to defend. What am I defending? You know, is it a self-concept? Okay, there is self-concept in it, but it goes deeper than that, because there's a real sort of fear. There's a fear. I could feel fear of needing to push back.
Would you call them boundaries?
Not really, because a boundary implies a line. The way I describe it is I see my space filled. Pernilla talks about the bubble of reality, and I see my space filled up with lots of tiny, tiny little bubbles, like minuscule frog spawn or something like that, bubbles, a lot of which are gray and sort of, in a way, armored. So they're gray and they're not open. And they're highly sensitive, and so they're always protecting on the alert. And so what I see it is that when there's a seeing of some resistance or defensiveness, that the armor's lifted in some of those bubbles. So this sort of bubble of reality becomes more like open, transparent, and permeable to open out further. That's my little visualization, but because it can go, the bubble of reality just is completely it's sort of conceptual, but it doesn't necessarily imply boundaries, because it can expand and contract. Because I don't boundary doesn't
feel
work
right.
very well.
Yeah.
It's more fluid, more and if you think of the body's energetic field anyway, it's interesting. I've done experiments because I've been interested in energy. And for example, if you are feeling open and you think of something loving, your energy field will be huge. Then somebody gives you a cell phone and you just stand there with a cell phone with a neutral, and your energy field will completely shrink down, because the cell phone is causing disruption in the energy field. And then if you think loving thoughts with the cell phone, you'll get some of your energy field. So we don't have boundaries. We've got a skin boundary, but our actual energetic boundary is vast, or can be vast. So yeah, that's how I feel.
Can you give an example of?
Sorry?
Can you give an example of setting a healthy social boundary thing?
Well, I'm very cautious, quiet, mostly. It's just going gently, but trying to be, but not trying. I think it's getting quiet inside to try and make that connection with somebody. So being as present as possible, taking moments to connect with you in whatever way that you can, and just taking it very gently and reassuring for yourself, it's okay to do this. I can ask questions. Nobody needs to take too much of me. I cannot be the one that that leads trying to lead the conversation yourself to draw out other people can be helpful. Things like that, so that you feel like you have a little control over the situation.
I feel really different to most people who I've heard talk about boundaries. None of it resonates with me. I feel like my boundary is either non-existent or it's way out past you. You're well and truly inside, and it doesn't really exist. I feel like I don't have boundaries. But I feel totally secure where I am. I don't feel at all threatened by what goes on around me. So it's not I don't need boundaries kind of thing. But I feel like I'm an odd one out with that as well.
I can relate to that too, Vince. There are times when there is that experience, and then there are times when, especially when there's like work that goes on the looking into where there's identification with things and reactions to things, then this sort of bubble concept comes in because of the projecting playing on that goes. And yeah, so I can also relate to what, but it's not a permanent lived-in experience here.
Well, I imagine, and I don't know, but it's purely imagination, that people that have boundaries, that's it's a protective thing, you know, that they have a boundary because inside that they feel safe and outside that they don't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was listening to Pernilla a few weeks ago talking about that, I guess the beginning of her stuff about Fetter 6, like how long ago that, a few weeks ago. And she said something about, because I found the word boundaries confusing sometimes. I don't know, what does that even mean? Does that mean I don't have any? Does that mean I don't know? Yeah, setting proper boundaries and what I'm like, I just have to think really hard and try to feel it and go, what is that? And anyway, she said something like, if you don't have proper boundaries or you haven't, or they were trampled or they were damaged or whatever when you were a child, then that means by implication that you are trampling boundaries on a daily basis all around you with other people. And I was like, oh no, I need to pay attention. Now maybe I'm doing that to people. I'm trying to look for all the places I've been upsetting people without realizing. And I don't know. I don't know if I do a lot of it, but I was trying to pay attention to that for a while. I don't know.
That rings a bell for me. I feel I wonder sometimes if I transgress too close to other people, if I don't honor their idea of boundaries, and because I'm a bit blunt, you know, with the way I talk and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I get what you're saying there. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
this thing that you talked about, having no boundaries, do you think that's because the self's dropped there? Because I imagine if the self's dropped, there couldn't possibly be boundaries energetically. So would you say that's the case for you, Vince? That the self,
I really don't
the
have
separate
any
self
idea.
has dropped?
I don't know if that's what. I'm trying to remember back before, and I can't remember. Did I have boundaries? Did I used to have boundaries? I don't know. I have no answer to that. I'm sorry. I don't know.
And the other thing is, Vince, I've not known you a long time, but I can't imagine you being blunt. I don't think you're blunt at all. I always think you're very gentle with everything. Well, I hear people commenting sometimes about that's what you're like, and I'm thinking, that's not my perception of you at all. You know?
Well, everybody remember. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, just thinking about what Vince was saying, and also and you too, and Ramis, about the boundary thing is how it doesn't resonate at all here is I think that it's and there was that sense when I had you know, a big seeing of there was no self, which lasted for quite a long time. There was a complete openness, and it was only when you know, after a while, then things started, the reactivity started to come back, and then I realized there was, you know, trauma work actually to do. I still don't think of it in terms of boundaries. I just think of it in terms of, you know, where there's when there's a sense of unease or low level anxiety present, which is very often the case, just sort of going on. And then when it's not there, if that could be taken as boundaryless, when there's a complete relaxation, a complete no sense of alertness, of there being something, even the nervous system, even if there's no vigilante looking out, but there's a little sense of, oh yeah, I can feel this tension in my body type of thing. Signifies a type of, yeah, unguardedness.
Yeah, I think I had that too, where what Angelo tends to talk about, the first awakening, you know, where you see there is no separate self, and then the process then is in the second, what he calls liberation, where you're dealing with all the trauma and the reactiveness. And I think what I called the first awakening, I had that too, Rowena, for quite a while, where I couldn't understand why people were making a fuss about things. I seemed very open and nothing seemed to bother me. I thought, that's it, I'm done, until I wasn't, until I realised that was the tip of the iceberg. But I think reactiveness for me is very clear, or boundaries, same thing, I suppose. When I know if someone's overtrodden my boundary, because I get it's like I feel it really strongly. And I think I know when I've overtrodden other people's, because I get the same feeling. I get the same, what have I said, sort of thing. So for me, it's a body, you know, I get a very strong body sense of it. Something feels off. And then I have to go back. You know, I might not even notice it that much. Say I'm out somewhere, and I get the twinge, the reaction, and then I come home and I have to kind of go back over the scenario and think, oh, what was that? And then pinpoint what someone said. And then it was when they said that, and then, like you were saying, Rowena, about then follow that thread down to, you know, so what does that mean to me? What am I protecting? How am I taking that as personal? And undo that boundary, so to speak, undo that thread of, it's not really a lot to do with what they've said. It's more to do with my protective mechanism, my boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That sounds exactly the way I sense it too. And
if I don't catch it, I can be a bit off for days. It's like, if I don't catch that trigger, and I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, reactive trigger, boundary, if I don't catch it, it's like something lurks in the background and makes things foggy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you've ignored something. You know, you've ignored that sensitivity in yourself again and overlooked it. You haven't gone back to pick it up and give it a cuddle. You know, like, it's all right, we don't need to. Yeah, it did hurt you, but they didn't mean it that way, and this is how they meant, you know, and kind of parenting that part of myself so that I don't have to be as boundary.
Yeah, it's quite wonderful how life is, there's the organism meat suit is responding how it's responding, but then when more is seen of, oh, reactivity, oh, what can be seen here, that the meat suit can just just relax more, and that life somehow will just the experiences will be received, and wherever the situation is. I mean, I think of it more as in a way, the nervous system and the neurological and physiological stuff going on, then is always adapting and becoming more regulated.
You know, I just got.
Yeah, I'm seeing that there's part of me that I go back and pick up what I'm calling the child or the fragile part. It sometimes needs things explaining to it. I've learned it sometimes. I know things from the part of me that's learned everything, and there's a part of me that needs that parenting, you know, and saying they didn't mean it, that they might not have meant it that way. They might have been very busy, and explaining really simple things that you'd think that I know, but I seem to have to explain it to another part of me. And what, you know, and then negotiating what if we just go for 2 hours and then we can come home and have something nice to eat? It's all about food. It's always about treating it to some food. And just that negotiation that part of me's never had, you know, of explaining to it and nurturing it and loving it.
That's beautiful.
And then there's a part of me that I've got to remember that, because I'll talk about all this seemingly quite clearly, and then I can forget it for 2 days and totally ignore that part. It's like the amnesia part of me comes in. It's like I forget everything.
But it'll always come back if it needs to, or sometimes it'll just won't, because it's received what the intention it needed. So, you know, I don't think that's a concern. And I guess I'm thinking,
but like the other day, I had this off day, really off day, and it's like I forget everything. It's like, why didn't I know to go and have a sleep when I feel like that? Or why didn't I look at my notes? And there are certain things that I can do, and then it seems like a day wasted because there are simple things that I can do that I have completely forgotten. And that's
but that's a thought.
one.
And there isn't anyone who's doing anything anyway, you know, so it's just like catch the thought too. But I'm just thinking, you know, like for Ramis and Don, you know, where the nurturing feminine side is not so maybe so pronounced. It takes a little bit more perhaps practicing being the nurturing parent, especially, you know, so that's something to, you know, think about for yourselves. It's just a thought that came to mind.
Okay, look, I'm going to pull the plug in 2 minutes.
Okay.
But I would, because it's midnight and I've got to get up at 5 o'clock. But I would really love to give you a gift. You know, I was overwhelmed a moment ago by a sense of sadness about, I want to give you the gift. If I could give you the gift, it would feel so great. The gift that, you know, there is absolutely no need for any protection whatsoever. It's a delusion that you need to protect anything. There's nothing to protect. There's no need to protect anything. You can, it's just a fantasy, I'm telling you, but it's real. I feel it is real, that there's nothing to protect and there's no need to protect anything. You don't need to put an armor on at all. But you do, of course. You do because you don't need to, but you do because you do. So it'll be there until you don't need it anymore. But the time will come when you simply don't need it. There's nothing to protect. You don't need to protect anything. You can just be absolutely spontaneous and open and don't matter about anything. Nothing matters. So there you go. I mean, I don't know. I wish I could give it to you as a gift that you could rub on or eat or something. I don't know. Yeah. All right.
Beautiful.
Good night.
Thanks, Vince.
Good night, Vince.
Thank you, Vince. Thank you, everyone, so much.
Yes.
Yeah.